All right, welcome back to the next chapter, chapter 6 of Dr. Claude Anderson's PowerNomics book. In this one, he's talking about how we must industrialize as the black community to secure our future. And this is almost perfect timing right now in the fact that we are living in an age where we're looking to onshore and bring manufacturing back to the United States. This summer there was a conference where they were talking about how it was actually going to be done. And, when it was first announced that, America was going to be fighting to get manufacturing back from China, a lot of memes went around and where people were laughing and talking about the idea of us working in sweatshops or us going back to the Henry Ford era of manufacturing where we were all, doing the assembly line, but that is not going to be the case. In that conference, it was called the Hill and Valley Conference or something like that. What was being discussed was actually how AI automated manufacturing was actually going to be the thing that comes back. And although Dr. Claude Anderson wasn't talking about AI automated manufacturing, obviously, when this book was written, it is an entrance into the arena for us. So again, from that same conference is a company called Gecko Robotics, where they were talking about how with the automated manufacturing facilities and machines, they could go to Home Depot and pick up anybody that has just kind of a inkling of what to do with screwdrivers and hammers and whatnot, and put them in front of these machines and train them in 30 days. So it wasn't a case where they needed long-term schooling to get certified. It was literally on-the-job training, 30 days, and they could have somebody up and running. Went to ChatGPT real quick because that's how the age we live in and what I do. And I found out that some of these machines were as low as $100,000, and I know that doesn't seem extremely low, but I'm saying that to say that you could be in a position to start off as even a one-man machine shop or manufacturing company with one of those like business parks where it looks like the storage sheds, a whole bunch of storage sheds that are actually businesses. You could actually be in one of those with your one. You get a business loan with your one machine and actually start small scale manufacturing. From there, it's still again where you could get more machines and start hiring black people to come in, people from our community to come in and work with your machines, and now you're providing jobs. And as we just said, the ability for Gecko Robotics to be able to do this in 30 days, we can get to the same point where we can get somebody from our community, from our church, to go in these facilities, train them on how to use our machines, and start providing jobs in the manufacturing industry. So this is all leading into current events leading into what he's talking about in this chapter. But it was actually saying America, it rewards production, and the communities that produce goods, have supply chains, own industries get to write the rules. And long as we're consumers, we don't get to write the rules for how things are going to happen in our communities. All right, so service-based businesses are great, but he goes on to say that they don't actually build economic power. Some of the common black-owned businesses in our communities that are beauty salons, barbershops, the corner stores, the churches, and fast food franchises, and those are, what he's saying is they are, a lot of times they are low margin businesses where you're running by the skin of your teeth to make sure that they stay alive and stay profitable until you get way past the point to where they're mega businesses. But a lot of times there's not a lot of margin left to scale those businesses. But what he's saying is in those same communities, we can start building warehouses, productions, facilities, logistics hubs, and high-tech manufacturers, and those businesses start to feed on each other. So again, in a lot of the examples that I've used in previous videos, when I talked about the restaurants hiring accountants, lawyers, and marketing services and all of those vendors, you get to do that on an even greater scale with industrial businesses, because now you still have to hire all of those service based businesses, as vendors to support your businesses, the marketers, the lawyers, and whatnot. But with this one, when you actually own an industrial place, you start having to need warehousing. So you can work with a black-owned warehouse company. Logistics. You start working with black-owned trucking companies to move your products around. And then the high-tech manufacturers are where either you become the manufacturer or you're working with manufacturers again as you being a business owner that produces that sells a certain type of good. When you're selling a certain type of good, you have the manufacturing facility that can actually develop it. You're putting your excess stuff into that black-owned warehouse and using a black-owned logistics company to get your stuff out to your products out to your consumers. And that is how we continue to build a economic infrastructure that's based on industry. And again, when you look at it from an educational standpoint, we can have our own trade schools that are training our high school students as they come out of high school in all of those industries. So kids can come out of high school and start learning how to be right into a manufacturing facility, into these warehouses, into these logistics jobs, and still working within the community with the entrepreneur mentors that I've discussed in a previous video on how they can actually go and build these as well in other parts of the city or other parts of the state or other parts of the nation, because we're building that base right there. We're building that hub of information right there. And it still matters in the digital age. For a while we were in the information age and in the attention economy, but now, especially with AI, a lot of that is starting to lose to AI. That's why we're seeing a lot of companies saying that they're going to start letting people go because AI can do a lot of that entry level work. So, although there's a need for all workers, the way we need those entry level workers is going to start to shift, and we have to be the people that are building that infrastructure so that when those jobs are lost, we have a place for our community to land. So Amazon, Apple, Tesla, all of these big corporations are still relying on physical industries to help them. Even if they appear to be online businesses, they still have infrastructure. Google has infrastructure. So some of the industrial sectors that we can look into are food processing and packaging, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing and fabrication, the one that I was speaking on strongly earlier, logistics and distribution, tech hardware and data centers. Data centers are going to be a huge thing coming up, but these are, all these are capital intensive. But we have to start looking into being creative on how can we do these on a smaller scale basis and plug into it as we build up the capital in our community to be able to go out there and do billion-dollar rounds of funding for some of these things. We have to start as small industrial businesses and tap into the hubs that are already in our communities and start to build and scale from there. And then lastly, just construction and that smart infrastructure. Again, starting as employees, independent contractors, general contractors, and plugging into those systems to further our community. A lot of times these aren't the glamorous fields that we tell our children that we want them to go into, but these are the fields that are in the industries that are actually going to build the economic growth that we need. And again, he's going to from labor to ownership. So we all know since the founding of this company, Black company, and America is a company, once we start realizing that it's more of a company than a country, and that we're supposed to be building and producing, our labor has been essential to the growth of the American company. And we started off building this company and not being paid for it. That switched to the trades and to the shipyards. But we never actually had a meaningful share. So we were always working for somebody. We went from the to the fields to the blue collar work, but we never got to the point where we were owning any of those businesses that we were building inside of America to have a meaningful share in those businesses. We were just looking for a job, looking for a job, looking for a job, and just getting paid. But we have to get to the point to where ownership of the land, of the businesses, and the community. He just keeps harping on that. The biggest thing that you got to get out of this is collective ownership, controlling the jobs, controlling our destiny. So when we have this new mindset, we go from hustle to systems. Like, we are great as a community as figuring out things, figuring out from a creative standpoint, and out hustling everybody. But systems is what lasts over time. So you can out hustle somebody for a year or two, but when you start to build systems and infrastructure, those things get built over 10 and 12 year, 15 year periods. And the hustle starts to die at some point. There's only so long that you can just be a hustler, and if our community is always hustling, we're always chasing the quick money, and the world is changing around us, and we're still looking up and seeing that we are not collectively rising, because hustlers always will just be a hustler, and we have a hustle mindset as a community, and we're not building those actual systems. We will always fall behind. We have to get from that, again, from hustle, from the solo to cooperative, embracing those cooperative models, investment clubs, community development, co-ops, and joint ventures. So again, going back to when I was saying that building the industrial businesses is more capital intensive, it lends itself to the fact that you need joint ventures. You will have to partner with other business owners and business-minded people to start pooling that money together to build bigger infrastructures and bigger businesses that can employ hundreds, if not thousands, of people in our community. And going from short-term to generational, going from I'm building this business within 12 months to I'm building long-term to things that might transform the entire community in 12 years. Again, with those industrial hubs that we were speaking about earlier, if you notice, a lot of times when people say they're moving to a certain place, they're moving to that place because of the jobs that are created there. Silicon Valley, they have the technology. Hollywood and Atlanta, that's where people go when they want to be in entertainment. So those are those geographic areas. Houston, where I live, is oil and gas and medicine, healthcare. So when you start to build hubs around a certain industry within your community, you start to attract investments, and again, you start to circulate the education and money within that same community. So with him, he's saying the geographic areas where businesses, suppliers, and workforce and training centers all are concentrated. So everything that's needed for that business, everything they need to get new laborers into that businesses are all within the same community. It goes in to say that how you start. You can start with just a few warehouse spaces and start building a skilled workforce, targeting investments, and that you can create that ripple effect so that you start to get more suppliers, get more contracts, and start building more jobs. The key thing is that we have to be intentional about building these industrial hubs, and it really just takes somebody deciding that I'm going to build this business that plugs in, and then start connecting with other people within the community to say, hey, do you know anybody within our community that can provide these resources? And the opportunities start to flow. And as people start to say, look, we're building this, but we don't have anybody that can provide. We don't have skilled people from our community. Some entrepreneur out there will say, you know what? I can create a school and I can start educating people around our community so that they are prepared to work for you and for the businesses that you're bringing to the community. And that's how we start to build it on our own without waiting for the government or somebody else to do it for us. It's our tool of self-determination. it's not just an economic strategy, it's a political one. So communities that can produce can negotiate. You don't have to protest, you don't have to beg. You can come to the table and say, this is what we're doing, this is the money that we're making for the community. We have something to offer. We need something to protect. We are invested in the community. We get to use that as leverage. Like, no, you can't do this here because we're providing jobs here, and if you do that, it's going to mess up the jobs that we're providing, and it's going to mess up the taxes that we're providing to the city. So that's how you get a true seat at the table to ensure the interests of our community are protected. Again, everything in America often comes back to money. You want to control the environment, you have to control the money. The education in high schools, we have a lot of CTE, career and technology education. There's always been this debate of whether you go to high school, whether you go to college, you go to trade school. You do what's best for you, but you need to make sure that you're going back into ownership of whatever you do. You need to have that mindset of whatever job I get, I'm getting this income to start building ownership in my communities. But on the industrial side, high schools can partner with trade schools and local businesses so they can get those certifications that are needed. So that's how we start to get a trained workforce from high school. Start working with those community colleges to provide those fast track programs. So a 6-month certification instead of waiting 2 to 4 years to get a degree. We have these certifications in industrial technology, operations management, and supply chain systems. So again, immediately after high school, we're able to start plugging people into these careers. And then an industrial worker is a future technician, a coder, builders, and inventors. We have to get them in the mindset that they are future builders, and as builders, they become owners, not just looking for a job to work for somebody else. You are going to school to learn to become a builder and use your skills as a builder to become an owner of something else that is building. That is how the cycle has to continue. The strategic investment, we can start crowdfunding. Again, going back to the churches being able to invest and pull large sums of resources together to start building some of these facilities. There's no reason that the church can't own some of these manufacturing facilities. It's a large institution that has the ability to provide jobs. Everybody always wants to complain when they say that the church owns anything or any capital. But if the church owns a warehouse and that warehouse is providing jobs for people in the community, and that warehouse is also being able to donate some of its profits back to the church is using those profits to enrich the community, this is the way that things are supposed to work. We should be circulating that money any way we can, wherever the money is going. If it takes the entire church pulling their resources together, and that church invests in owning some land and builds a facility that can actually provide jobs and produce, there's no problem with that. And we have to let go of this stigma that everything's supposed to be poor in our community. We don't need poor nothing. I don't even want poor. We don't have to have poor black churches. We need churches that are able to produce and provide for the community. It's great to have the Sunday morning inspirational message, but we need to start building over and over and over. We need a collective mindset that is focused on building. He closes out with saying the future belongs to the builders. It's not just about making money. It's about controlling our destiny. The only way to control their destiny is to build that destiny for our children and grandchildren, not to just inherit our struggle stories, but to inherit the infrastructures that we're building now. Everything that you're doing now, you're doing so that your great-grandchildren can have a better life. You want to be that story of where the grandchild says, my grandfather started this with nothing. Everybody, often complains that The Elons and the Bill Gates of the world didn't come from nothing. Their parents or grandparents gave a certain amount of money. If and as the meme goes, if you didn't come from money, you have to be that source. So in your trilogy of your family, you might not get to be the grandchild to say my grandfather did this. In your trilogy, you're number one. You might be the first part of that story where you start to build the infrastructure. Your son expands upon it, and your grandchild gets to be born into money. But it starts with what you're going to do now.